Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up of awesomeness. Seriously, if you haven't heard, this title is a pretty amazing piece of work. As a longtime fan of the comics and one of the many girls who dyed her hair blue to be Ramona for Halloween, I was excited to see this title pop up on the Xbox Live Arcade. Whether you like the comics and story or not, the game is spectacular. I decided to review it because we're coming up on the 1-year mark of its initial release date, and it's still a title I enjoy going back to every so often and playing through with friends. I understand that some gamers out there might not know about Scott Pilgrim. He's an average video game loving Canadian who's interested in a pretty cool chick named Ramona. Unfortunately, she has 7 evil exes that Scott has to fight in order to continue dating her. It's a pretty solid story geared toward 20-something gamers who've played their fair share of classic games and also enjoy a solid comedy. The plot is completely saturated with video game references, one of the funniest being anytime a character is destroyed, he explodes into money. In video games, we don't think twice about why. Thank you, River City Ransom. Barf. In the basic game, you can play as Scott, Ramona, Steven Stills, Kim, or Nega Scott, and battle your way through the game, progressively leveling up your character and making them more powerful and generally more impressive. It adds quite a lot of replay value to the title, as you have to restart the whole game if you plan on leveling up someone new on your own. I've got a few characters I still have to play through the game with, so I'm using this review as an excuse to do so. The multiplayer in this title is awesome. Sometimes games suffer from what I'm now calling the new Super Mario Bros. Syndrome, which entails a situation where you end up hating the people you're playing with. The Scott Pilgrim game has a perfect balance of fighting together and rushing to gather the most money. And honestly, playing with friends is the best way to go. Even on its easiest setting, Average Joe, this game is still fairly difficult. Getting into the later stages, you'll find it harder and harder to stay alive and end up calling a friend to really rock your way through this. As you level up, you'll unlock combos which make handling the large amount of enemies a little easier, but this game is still incredibly challenging. It's for fans of hardcore, unforgiving titles of our past like Ninja Gaiden, River City Ransom, and the game whose name I hate saying out loud, Battletoads. You have a regular attack, a heavy attack, you can pick up items, people, or turnips and use them as a weapon or throw them, and you also have a special skill at your disposal which is character dependent. Controls are fairly intuitive, and although the gameplay can feel a little slow at times, with massive amounts of enemies, a breather is quite welcome. Sometimes dashing can be a little difficult, but I think that's all in the 360 controller. The music is something you can't overlook in this game. Anamanaguchi is not only a great group of guys, they're incredibly talented musicians. The chiptune tracks in this title are amazing. They each have a distinct feel for the levels and bring lots of retro love to this great 2D piece of work. The soundtrack is definitely worth picking up even if you aren't interested in playing this title. I would also like to mention the rest of Anamanaguchi's non-Scott Pilgrim music is also amazing. There are a ton of great references in this title, and if you haven't played it, I'm not going to spoil them for you. It's just nice to stumble across a nod to something classic from your past. Since the whole of the Scott Pilgrim series is steeped in retro game references, this is the perfect venue to emulate that idea. This game is $10 and is actually a decent deal for the price. You get a lot of solid music, awesome graphics, a hilarious storyline, and great gameplay for single or multiplayer. If you haven't had a chance to play this title yet, I highly suggest giving it a shot. It's a great downloadable title to add to a regular rotation. In December of 2010, this title received some much-needed DLC. The $2 pack contained 2 new game modes, Battle and Dodgeball, which pit players against friends, and the much-needed playable character Knives Chow. I think this title is a perfect reflection on the series created by Bryan Lee O'Malley. It has the obvious spirit of Scott Pilgrim while utilizing the sheer fact that we're dealing with a game. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is a well-rounded title with a lot of great aspects and something you should pick up today if you haven't already. Get it together and bust out this title for an awesome time.